What's up, everybody? Bootsy Greenwood here, and today I want to talk about ascension, ascending the levels of consciousness. We hear about this a lot on the internet, and I think it's something that is pretty interesting because I've personally been experiencing this in a way that I can actually track it. So what I want to do for you today is give you my insight into how I experience these transfers into different levels of energy or states of consciousness, so that hopefully it can help you to do the same. So that way you can track things a little bit and you can kind of see where you're at and basically take inventory of where you are and make decisions based on where you are on these levels of consciousness, so that you don't shoot yourself in the foot. So you don't shoot that message off when you're in a bad state of mind, and piss somebody off, so that you don't take an action too soon when you could have actually saved an interaction. So learn from some of my mistakes that I've been making, and you can actually save yourself a lot of heartache and a lot of disappointment just by some of the stuff that I'm going to share here. Now, this is going to be very subjective, okay, and almost even arbitrary seeming. But I do think as a model, remember, the map is not the territory ever. As a model, this can be so incredibly helpful. And I'm just going to explain to you how I experience this and what I do in order to bump my state of consciousness up. I'm obviously not sitting around like on some floating pillow like some monk. And every day I wake up and I'm in kind of a different place based on this map here. Now, this I'm taking from David Hawkins' Map of Consciousness from the book Power versus Force, which is a phenomenal book. This is not the end-all be-all, but it is the most common model that people use. Now, let's start out at the bottom. At the bottom of this map, the bottom half, he has it labeled as force. Now, what is force? Force is when we're actively trying externally to control things and to manipulate. This is a very Machiavellian frame of mind to come from, where you're going to force or coerce someone else into doing something that you want and use, external force in order to try and get the thing that which you want. Now, when we get into the higher levels of consciousness, we are coming from a state of power, which is internal power, empowerment from within. And it's a completely different outlook. It's a completely different perspective than the bottom half of this map. Now, I want to talk about where I usually start out at, and I want to explain to you how I bump my level up in order to get into a higher consciousness level. Now, I'm going to go ahead and say this, no disrespect, but I think 99.9% of people think they're higher on this map than they actually are. And first of all, of course, we fluctuate all through it, okay? Now, sometimes I'm riding a momentum wave and I'm waking up in a higher state. But lately, I'll be honest, I've been waking up here in desire here, all right? What is desire? Desire is this wanting, it's this longing, it's this fixation on a certain thing that we want externally in our life that we don't have, right? And so we begin to fixate on it, we begin to daydream about it and fantasize about it, which really only puts us further down into these fear states if we continue to focus on it, and down into grief, apathy, guilt, and ultimately shame if we continue down the downward spiral, okay? Now, this is very interesting to me because I was very puzzled by it. If you'll notice, the next level up from desire is anger. Now, I've been sharing a lot about the Bhagavad Gita lately. The Bhagavad Gita talks about how desire leads to anger and frustration and wanting, right? Wanting more, this frustration, this anger. But if we're smart, we can use our desire to bump us up to anger. Because what I've heard a lot of people say, and I don't know if I agree with this or not, doesn't matter, is that you can't skip levels up. You can't just jump from desire, let's say, to acceptance. You can't just jump up, okay? There's gonna be some transition from state to state, and now in my experience, that's absolutely true, okay? When I'm in desire and I wake up in the morning, my first thing that I do is morning pages. I sit down and I just free write. Okay, so if I'm in a desire state, I notice that I'm wanting something, that I feel like something's missing from my life. And if I try to just be grateful and do like gratitude practice with a desire in my heart, well, guess what? Not much is gonna come of that. I'm just gonna think about, all these great things that I have, and then, but wouldn't it be better if I had this other thing that I really want? So it's not it's not actually bumping me up. The next level up is anger, which does seem very counterintuitive. Anger to a spiritual person sounds evil and bad, but in fact, it can be a very useful state of mind. If you're in a desire state, you can actually bump yourself up a level in consciousness by getting angry. That's right. You can get upset, you can get pissed off and say, well, why is it that I don't have the thing that I want? Okay? Remember, now this is key, very, very key. It's not about getting angry at anyone else. You have to use that anger to question yourself. Why is it that I don't have what I want? What did I do that I could have done better? What can I do moving forward that I can do better to get the thing that I want? So from there, I'll start to have those thoughts, right? I'll be angry. I'll be like, I'm gonna scream into my pillow. Right? I'm on a walk and I'm like, all right? But from there, if I continue down that and I self-question using anger, then I start to get into this state right here, which is pride. And this is the last part of this force paradigm at the bottom of this map, okay? Now the pride thing, my thoughts are like, why don't I have it? I deserve it. I've done all this stuff. I did this and that and this, and why aren't they calling me back? Why didn't they ask me to be on this thing, right? It's this like very I-centered, prideful, I should have it, I deserve it type of a thing, okay? And so that is pride, which again, let's not make this a bad thing. This means that we're getting closer to the higher part of the pyramid. The next step on this consciousness ladder is courage, okay? Now, courage is about action. It's about taking action. And this is where the domino falls. The domino falls when we take action through our courage, because this courage makes us take action without wanting a result. So I'll give you an example. I was in a social environment and I was trying to be social and get myself into a good state of mind. I don't drink, so the best way for me to do that is to usually talk to people. And so I would go up and talk to people and they could tell that I was in desire, that I was in anger, frustration, pride, like these levels of consciousness. They could just whiff it off of you. They know. And this is a subconscious thing. Like it could be an NPC, they still know. Okay? And so what I did instead was I was like, all right, well, this is clearly not working. What can I do? What can I do for me to get me into a higher state of consciousness? Now, this is the beginning right here. Courage is flow. You want to tap into your flow state. This is, as the Bhagavad Gita talks about, the beginning of dispassionate action. Action without the desire for results. Okay, so what did I do? I start dancing. I made a game for myself. Start dancing through the crowd. I'm dancing through the crowd, not hitting anybody, making it a game. Okay, so a couple minutes go by. I'm bumping up my state. In my state, I get into a flow state, dancing, just enjoying myself. And then I go have a drink of water, and I'm standing there, and now someone approaches me. They start talking to me. I'm talking to them. We're having a good time, and bam, just like that, I'm in a flow state, which ultimately becomes this indifference here. Now, indifference kind of sounds sort of bad. It's like indifference, that just sounds like bleh. But what indifference is a hard to explain, really hard to explain, but it's taking action, enjoying what you're doing in that moment, and not wanting anything, not expecting a direct result. You're indifferent. You're doing a thing, but you're not doing it because you're going to get something. So in these lower states of consciousness, this is Machiavellian, okay? This is manipulative. We are expecting a direct result, directly. You're like, I'm going to hit this nail and with this hammer and it's going to go down, okay? So that's a direct result, okay? And then I'm going to have a deck built or whatever that is, right? Very, very commonsensical, very physical, very material, okay? Now that's a direct action. Taking that action gives you a direct result. But that's not how the world works. The way the world works is when we take an action, there are consequences and results that come from many directions, not necessarily directly, but often indirectly. So whenever we're taking that action, we're doing that thing, we're in the flow, we're doing something because we just want to do it. So my big question to you is, what are those things, right? Like it could be dancing, it could be gardening, it could be walking, but I want you to think about what is it that you enjoy doing just for the sake of doing it, right? Like when I dance, I'm not dancing to impress anyone or get some sort of a result. There's nobody's gonna give me an award for dancing in the nightclub, okay? It's just not gonna happen. So I'm just dancing, I'm dancing for myself because I enjoy it, right? And because of that, it leads to me bumping up into this indifference frame and on up into these higher levels of consciousness. You'll notice this is green here. That's associated with the heart chakra, and that's a connection to your soul. You're starting to really connect to the oversoul, the Atman, your spirit, whatever you want to call that, okay? So that is how you can begin to get up into those levels of consciousness. This is Machiavellian down here. Up here, this is for the sake, for love. This is for, what's the word I'm looking for? Because the Bhagavad Gita talks about there's degenerate action or degenerate destiny. There's two destinies. One is degenerate and, what is the other one? I can't even remember right now. God, I was on such a roll too. I was like, wow, what a flow state. All right, so one is degenerate down here, and then the other one is divine. So this is the divine state of mind up here. As soon as you get across into courage, start taking action for the sake of it without expecting anything in return, you begin to bump up into indifference, and now you're in divine destiny, and you're gonna start to see that results come from different sources, not where you expected them to come from. And you start to get into this state which the Bhagavad Gita calls a spiritual intuition. So the idea of desire sounds similar to what divine intuition would be, but it would be like you just knew that you needed to go and talk to this person, and because of you going to talking to them sincerely with no outcome attached to it, an opportunity comes by as a result. Not necessarily from them, but maybe they talk to somebody else and they talk to somebody else, and then they get in touch with you and they're like, hey, my friend met you at this club and you guys were talking. Just wanted to let you know, you seem like a cool person and we have this opportunity. Are you interested in it? And then it comes by, or it comes to you as a result indirectly. So I hope this makes sense. It's a lot to unpack. I'll probably make a couple of videos on this, and hopefully I don't get in trouble for sharing this map that I drew myself, okay? But this is very, very important. And what you can start to do is just take inventory of the thoughts that you're having and say, what state am I in, right? Like, in fact, as a gift, if you'll shoot me a message on Instagram, either on my personal account or Blue Collar Mystics, I'll send you a graphic that my friend Allison made that is really, really good. And you can keep that in your camera roll and reference it. And you can be like, hey, where am I at? Let me just check where I'm at. And then you can start to use these ideas as leverage to bump yourself up into higher states and levels of consciousness. A little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, right? And I'm not saying you can't be here and then start doing a flow thing and eventually get there. But even if you do that, in my experience, for me, I'm still feeling the different states and the thoughts that accompany those states as I'm getting up into that flow. So I'm consistently feeling the next level and the way that those thought patterns are. Then the next level and the way that those thought patterns are, even while I'm sidewalk chalking or even while I'm, dancing or whatever the case may be. And the big thing too to do is to think about it. What do you like doing just for the sake of doing it? Start doing that and finding ways that you can do that, because then your state of consciousness is going to start naturally leveling itself up. But the more you monitor this, the more you'll be able to actively understand it and control it. So I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much for watching this video. If it's helpful, leave a comment. If it's not, well, I tried, you know what I mean? But thanks so much for being a subscriber. If you are one, if you're not, subscribe to the channel, and we will see you guys in the next video. I have a lot of really cool podcasts coming up. Please check that stuff out. And I've got a bunch of free resources on my website right now, and I'm currently working up a really exciting offer. So thank you again. Have a wonderful day. I hope this is helpful, and we'll see you next time. Love is all there is. Much love, peace, many blessings.